what if we are misinformed? What if we are misinformed? What if this credit crisis that we're in is an illusion? What if the credit crunch is an illusion? Here's a question for everyone. What is credit?
If you were in credit, meant
yeah,
that you had that money.
You had the money.
That was yours.
You had the money.
And if you were in debit, that meant you didn't have money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? But
okay,
credit,
does everyone get that? If you have credit, you got the money, and you have debit, you don't have the money.
Yeah, and yet they call it a credit card.
Oh. So if you have a credit card, does that mean you're in credit or in debt? Look, the most interesting thing about this is that if you look from the outside, credit and debit is something which from the outside you can see. The only problem is that when it gets passed to you, it's actually at the moment in the current credit society we're in, which is actually a debt society, it's all reversed. If I was to come up to you and say, I've got a brilliant product to sell, and you said, what's that product? And I said, my children's education, you say, well, how is it you're selling that? It says, because when you buy this product, I end up getting money for my children's education. You say, well, that means I'm not buying it. It says, well, it's all part of the product, isn't it? When you have a bank come to you and says they'd like to give you credit, they're not actually giving you credit, they're giving you debt. They're the ones that get the credit. When you have a credit card, they're the ones who get the credit. When you have a credit score, it's their ability to get credit from you. So what happens very quickly is we realize that the credit crunch is nothing more than our inability to be able to take on more debt. That's what it is. So we should celebrate, because if we celebrate... But let's also understand it to know why it even started in the first place. And the reason that it started in the first place was because that's how we built our entire capitalist society. We could not have put on this world tour if there had not been credit. We could not have the internet today if it wasn't for that capital system which created us credit. But it's now outlived itself, because the only thing that it did all the way through was to cut down our cost of connection and cost of delivery. But our cost of connection and cost of delivery is now so low that we're actually seeing empires like media this fall, because they only actually had its power before by actually controlling the cost of power, the cost of delivery. And suddenly we can all just go out and create our own media company. Why is this so important? Because then we can realize why it is that those who are trying to channel all that water, all that money to be able to provide all the irrigation suddenly find they've lost all their power when it starts to rain. And it started to rain. And we're the raindrops. So if we know that and we see that, then we can actually create a new paradigm, which is okay. That served itself for a while, but here we are, and now instead of trying to control the flow, how do we actually capture and share that flow? It's something quite different. And this is where we come up with this concept of economy. An economy is not sustainable by its very nature, whereas an ecology is sustainable because you find it in nature. An economy is something which is based on lack, and an ecology is something based on abundance and sufficiency, which means that there is already enough. Bucky said there's already enough. There's already enough. Lynn has some inspiring things she shares firsthand, because I never got to meet Buckminster Fuller, but he is one person who was way ahead of his time, and there are so many of us now seeing this world game that he talked about actually come true, that this concept of ecology is about preservation. It's about looking at things differently. What Darwin said was not that the survival of the fittest comes down to who is strongest. He said it's not the strongest who survive, it's not the most intelligent who survive, it's those who are most adaptable to change. The value that we have is not of what we can achieve, it's already who we are. That there is a huge difference of having a value based on your longing and a value based on your belonging. And we are now at a space and at a place where we can measure that belonging. We can measure our connection to each other. We couldn't do that before the internet, before social media. We can do it today. So we can start to change our measure, because when you look at form, then you can define form by how you measure your change. But when you transform, then you measure it by how you change your measure. So what if we actually change the way that we are financing ourselves? Because we're going to see that in the next couple of years. There's already big groups that are working on it as well. So if you think, I don't have the money, you can easily get the money. But it's going to be in new forms, in new ways. And I'm so excited to see that happening right now. A lot of the work that's happening right now in America, a lot of work going on around the world, is in creating these new structures in new ways as well. So you think, okay, well, if we actually have those, so we have information and a new language of working together, and it's already happening, well, then what's the next step? Maybe it's our direction. Maybe it's when we actually start looking at direction, we realize that money has a direction, that we have a direction. Maybe money is part of the problem. What if we're misdirected? Maybe the British government can keep on printing money And maybe it actually might put us into more problems than get us out of them. So how will we ever know? Well, we can know by resetting right now. How do we do this? Little exercise. I'd like everyone to imagine that you go to bed tonight, you wake up tomorrow morning, and when you wake up, you've got nothing. 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 Whatever you think your property is worth, it's worth nothing. Whatever you think your business is worth, it's worth nothing. Whatever money you've got in the bank, it's disappeared. It's all gone, right? The money in your wallet is just worth nothing. In fact, money itself, the pound, has become worth nothing. The US dollar became worth nothing. The yen became worth nothing. Currencies are worth nothing. Everything's worth nothing. You wake up in the morning, you can't exchange any of that money. You've got no more money. My question to you is, how would you feel? And what would you do, right? You still got to live, you still got to eat, so how would you feel? What would you do? But let's take that concept of the fact that if we had nothing, we would feel more liberated as well. Why would that be? Anyone? Why would you feel more liberated? Yeah. Nope.
Because we feel wealthy all of a sudden.
You would suddenly realize what you do have, as opposed to putting that power into something which you don't have. Yeah.
No debts to repay anymore.
No debts to repay anymore. Would you very quickly try and get back into debt? No, it's like, didn't even need it in the first place. Wow, so the worst it could possibly get is better than today. The worst it can, don't worry about the pound going down or, property prices collapsing. Look, the worst that it can get is better than today because it actually gets us back to who we're meant to be. You can measure your change, or you can change your measure. This life is not a life for the getting. It's a life for the giving. Thank you.